Hi, everybody. Today we're here to talk about a very serious subject. So, warning, if you're not prepared to talk about death and Alzheimer's, you might not want to watch this video. A caregiver asked this week, how do you die from Alzheimer's disease? What happens? I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. On there is a lot of helpful information about Alzheimer's and memory loss and caring for people who have cognitive disabilities. The reason that I'm able to talk about this is because for over 20 years, I cared for older adults. And for many of them, I was a court-appointed guardian or a medical and financial power of attorney. So I was legally responsible for their day-to-day care and their health and their doctor appointments and managing all of that. And so I'm going to share experiences from some of my client situations to kind of help you understand what happens as memory loss progresses, and then what happens when we do get closer to end of life. Things that you might want to pay attention to and actions that you definitely want to take. So memory loss occurs as a result of a variety of medical conditions. Sometimes it is hereditary, so Alzheimer's in your family can be hereditary if your parent or grandparent or someone else in your family had that. Dementia, which is kind of the much bigger umbrella. So Alzheimer's is under dementia. Parkinson's can be a type of dementia. Lewy bodies is a type of dementia. There's other types of dementia. Sometimes these result purely from the diagnosis, but a lot of times they result from other health issues in our life. High blood pressure and circulatory issues can cause what they call ischemia in the brain, which relates to memory loss. Kidney disease can result in dementia if it also results in heart disease. So there's a lot of chronic diseases that can contribute to someone having memory loss or a type of dementia. And then sometimes there is what's called a brain injury. People who have a stroke and lose blood circulation up here in the brain can have a type of memory loss or a type of dementia. So that's how it happens. And it usually doesn't happen overnight. People who have dementia have signs, according to research, 10 to 20 years before a diagnosis. So it's important to understand the diagnosis way at the beginning. But as time goes on, older adults lose weight. They maybe are not as good with self-care or exercise. And so there's two conditions that you might hear of if you go to the doctor or if you have a parent who's in the hospital. One is called sarcopenia, and that is just age-related muscle loss that all of us, believe it or not, beginning at the age of 30, will have because we're not as active. So it really does take consistent exercise. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but walking, using weights, resistance exercises, it takes a lot to maintain our muscle strength as we age. And muscle strength relates to our physical abilities, it relates to our weight, it relates to our nutrition. So as people age, they have this age-related muscle loss and they don't eat as well, their nutrition is poor, they can have digestion issues, all kinds of things that start to contribute to the body getting weak. People who have Alzheimer's or dementia, any type of dementia, their bodies eventually become weak if they're not consistently active. The other diagnosis that you may hear from a doctor in the hospital is a term called failure to thrive. This also relates to all elderly people, not only people with memory loss, but it's more significant in people with memory loss. So failure to thrive is the weight loss, it's the poor nutrition, it's loss of muscle mass, and it's loss of activity. So eventually, as Alzheimer's progresses, if there isn't a great deal of support from a caregiver or from the family, people will become less physically active, and then the body just starts to get weak. And so as we lose muscle mass and we lose activity, we lose And so as we lose muscle mass and we lose activity, we start to sit more. We become more sedentary. We become less active. And if you'll notice, people who have Alzheimer's probably start to sit more, or as the disease progresses, they're eating less, they're less active, they stay in bed a lot, and they start to sleep a lot. Now, sometimes this can go on for a long time. I've known people who had Alzheimer's who lived for 10 or 15 years until they passed away. But sometimes what you'll see is more infections. So as the body becomes weaker, infections can become more frequent. So things like urinary tract infections or infections like pneumonia or respiratory infections or things like that. Because the body gets weak and it's unable to fight off all of these things that are going on. Sometimes a person with Alzheimer's may just pass away out of the blue. They may not wake up one morning. Other times, dying can be a process of 6 months or weeks or days. There are times when some accident hastens the speed of end of life. So if a person with Alzheimer's has a hip fracture, that can be very traumatic. Or if they have a heart attack or a stroke or something else, that really taxes the body. And it's hard for a body with advanced Alzheimer's disease to fight off everything that's going on. So there's a lot of causes that hasten the end of life, and sometimes there is no cause. So people with Alzheimer's at end of life have less of an appetite. They may not want to drink. They may refuse when you try to get them to eat or drink. They may want to sleep a lot. And people with Alzheimer's who sleep a lot or sit a lot are likely to get what we call bed sores or body sores, and they can get them on their bottom or their feet or their legs. This also means that the body is not fighting off infection as well. And so if you see this, my recommendation is to talk to your doctor about a consultation for palliative care or hospice care, because comfort at end of life it's significant. It can provide a lot of help through hospice for the person in the way of medical supplies, hospital beds, a nurse who comes to visit, help with medication management, support for the family who's grieving and who may have a lot of questions about, I'm seeing this, what does this mean? So it's so important not to wait to get hospice care if you believe that the health condition of your loved one with memory loss is really declining and you're concerned about death. Death is a scary subject. A lot of people are afraid of death. They're afraid of dying in pain. Hospice is so beneficial to help with all of that and to have your loved one be able to die at home in their bed and in the most peaceful situation and in comfort and not in pain. So what happens in the last weeks or days of a person's life with memory loss? They sleep most of the time. They're probably not awake a lot. They may be in and out of consciousness. You may be able to have brief conversations with them, but they're mostly sleeping. They can have breathing issues. So breathing goes up, breathing goes down, pulse goes up, pulse goes down, temperature goes up, temperature goes down. Their body temperature can go down. So maybe if you hold their hand is colder, or if you touch their feet are colder. Sometimes toward the end of life, there's a condition that's called mottling in the hands and in the feet. The feet can start to turn colors. They may turn blue. You may notice the fingernails losing some color. The people at hospice can explain a lot of this to you. But basically at end of life, if a person is on hospice and they're receiving comfort care, it's a very peaceful death. I have been with my clients who have had memory loss when they passed away, and they just slip away into sleep. A lot of times, though, I will tell you, family members who seem to be hanging on might be waiting for something. I had clients who were on hospice, and I would show up to visit and I would let them know that I had taken care of everything that they needed to. One of my clients she was always worried about having her bills paid and she wanted her cat adopted and all of that. She was in hospice care and I went to visit her and I said, I have all this taken care of. Your bills are paid, your cats are adopted, everything's handled. It's okay if you go. And so I left and I drove home. And 30 minutes later, as I was putting the key into the door of my house, I got a phone call. And it was the hospice nurse. And the hospice nurse said, you know what? So-and-so just passed away. And I thought, wow, she was waiting for me to show up. So sometimes your family members do wait for you to say, you know, it's okay to go. You don't need to wait for us anymore. So death is a very difficult subject to discuss. If you have family members who are struggling with this, please share this video with them. Please do investigate hospice and palliative care services long before you need to, so that if a situation arises, you know what services are involved and you know how to implement them and get them started for your loved one. I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. Thanks for hanging in there for this video that I know is such a very, very difficult topic. Have a fabulous day today. I'll see you all again soon in another video.